security guard at the hospital, and he's like, yeah, these people, what they do is they target these cars hoping that they're going to find a garage door opener and a paper documentation that has your address, like a car registration, and they'll just go drive up to your home, push the button, break in. And they would do it at the most vulnerable time, right? Like your dad's nobody goes to the hospital because they're having a good day.
Correct.
So after that, I was like, I need a gun. And I was like, okay. I clocked out and I went and built an AR-15 and realized that I was getting to a point where I was like, I should just make this a business. It costs money. I should start doing something that doesn't cost me. I should start making it make something for me.
What happens when a software engineer becomes a arms dealer by night? Or when people use clever tactics in order to get to what's most valuable to you? Hey guys, welcome back to the ADHD Express. Today we're talking with David Brilliant, who is exactly as his name entails, brilliant. He gave us the opportunity to understand him a little bit more and how a software engineer can become an arms dealer. And we talked about people that are looking out for vulnerabilities, both in the real world, such as in the hospital parking lot, or online, virtually, and how the overlords of technology take and use and abuse our data. Thank you guys for joining in, and I hope you guys learn as much as I did from this entire experience. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It's right down there. Thank you guys for joining us. And let's get to the podcast.
And that kicks off another start of the ADHD Express podcast. We decided long ago to not warn people about the audio spike because it tends to make you relax a little bit. And now you're laughing and you're having a good time and you're not going to overthink the podcast. Well, you guys, thank you for joining us. Episode 29, we guesstimate roughly. We've had to burn a couple of ones that didn't come out all right, but thank you for joining us. And we have an additional Osmond brother, not the two Osmond brothers, but we got all three of them. Say hello, fellas. Hey, and arms dealer by night. So let's go and listen to this. I hope you guys enjoy this journey as we find out about what it takes to start your own firearm sales or is it an arms company? What would it be? Armory?
Arms company sounds accurate enough.
Yeah. Well, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit? Give us some of the journey, man.
Oh, well, so I jokingly tell my wife that I should have a business card that says, David Brilliant, software engineer, international real estate mogul, and arms dealer.
Yeah, you should.
I think that would get me through airport security every time. I would never get stopped. No. It's not like I don't already get, rectally examined every time I go through security anyway. So it wouldn't change anything, right?
Not at all. Funny.
But yeah, I kind of, so I started out, I grew up here in Cache Valley, and I had some great mentors when I was in high school that got me through, doing software stuff.
Okay.
So I went through to do like a high school. I had like 2 computer science classes. I did some additional at the BTech, some additional programming courses, and I decided I'd go to college. I kind of, all right, let's try this out. Did the computer science course up at USU and graduated with a bachelor's degree in computer science. And then during that process of going to college, I had my car broken into 2 times on the worst day of my life.
At Utah State?
Living down on the island, over just down the hill. And I had gone on a trip with my dad, and on the trip back, the whole time he was there, he was having stomach pain.
Oh.
And we went through our vacation, came back home, and he immediately looks at me and says, David, I need to go to the hospital. But all right, so I walk up to my 1990 Subaru Legacy, which the doors locks didn't work. So like I just never locked it. And I see the doors ajar, and I get in, and somebody dropped my glove box, rifled through, pulled out a check for $30 that they stole, and that was it. That's all they got was a check.
Right, which isn't going to be that easy to cash anyhow.
Right. So, but they got that, and I was like frustrated, but okay, something more important to do. Dad, take him to the hospital. And on my way back to the house, I get a phone call from my sister. Your dad's being life flighted to Salt Lake.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, so I get in the car and I drive like a maniac down to Salt Lake. And we're in the hospital, and he's going in for emergency surgery. He had an bowel problem. They needed to, close him up. Anyway, he almost dies. And that night when I'm leaving to go back home, I get out into the parking lot and I walk up to my car. Trunk's been popped.
Oh, geez.
Somebody's rifled through all my stuff again and stole like a jacket and a blanket. That's all. And I'm just flabbergasted. This is the hospital parking lot.
And what car is this? What kind of car is it?
The 1990 Subaru Legacy.
Okay, yeah, you said that. All right. So not even like right, not like a high end car.
No, I mean you target low end cars like that because you know that the people who have them probably like that's where they live, right? Like when you're poor, you live in your car. Everything's in it. When you're rich, you live in your house.
Valid. Yeah, okay. I never thought about it like that. Yeah, that is very valid.
So they target these cars. And the other thing so I talked to the security guard at the hospital, and he's like, yeah, these people, what they do is they target these cars, hoping that they're going to find a garage door opener and a paper documentation that has your address, like a car registration. And they'll just go drive up to your home, push the button, break in.
Wow.
That's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
At least at the time. This was, I think,
I'm sure it's still,
2012, 2014, something like that. So yeah, the after that, I'm like, there are people in this world that kind of deserve to die. Like if you ran into them on the street and like, I've never been a gun person, but like, I'm like, these people would hurt me. These people would literally hurt me to get $30 in checks and a coat, And I'm like, and they would do it at the most vulnerable time, right? Like your dad's nobody goes to the hospital because they're having a good day.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're it
is kind of a different kind of a low life that's going to go target that area.
Right.
Right.
And they do it because they know that you're not going to be there for,
hours. Yeah.
And so they're specifically targeting you to be awful to you.
Yeah.
And so after that, I was like, I need a gun. And I started doing research. Talking to some friends, I decided, okay, I'm going to buy my first gun. I never owned a gun in my entire life.
Yeah.
Up until this point, I'd shot. I'm an okay shot. I liked them. I didn't have like a problem with guns, but I grew up in a house where we just didn't have guns. That was not what we did. And I did all this research, and I'm like, okay, I want a 30-30 lever action. And I was poor, so I looked at Rossi, and so I went to Walmart and I bought my first gun from Walmart. I loved it. I sold it at some point, but it was my first gun, and I got the bug from that. And so immediately the next thing I do is realize that 30-30 costs $1 a round.
Yep, valid.
And then I'm like, well, what's cheap? 5.56. I'm like, okay. So 80% were kind of like starting to become a thing at that point, and so I made my first 80% lower. I worked at Novak Conversions at the time.
Oh, okay, cool, yeah.
And Eric Forsberg, I don't know if you know him, but he totally encouraged everybody to use the shop off hours. And I was like, okay. I clocked out and I went and built an AR-15 in the shop.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so it was my first AR, built it, put it all together, shot it, loved it. And I got the bug. I started making more. I made another AR and kept going and here I am today. I kind of realized that I was getting to a point where I was like, I should just make this a business. It costs money. I should start doing something that doesn't cost me. I should start making it make something for me.
Sure.
And so the idea for Crow Mountain Armory starts bouncing around in my head. And at the time I was living in Arizona, and I started doing research on like, how do you get your federal firearms license and become a gun dealer? And I was like, all right, did all this research. And when I moved here, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to finally do it. I'm going to go through the process. And I did. I put it all in action, set up my LLC, applied for my license with the ATF, and now I'm here. I've been in business for, I think this is going to be my 3rd year coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it's not a crazy big business. Not every business has to be like a
Sure.
major venture. For me, I have a full-time job doing software engineering. So it's like, it's not a need for me to have a life-sustaining business. So I do it as a hobby.
Yeah.
It's not a hobby business, like it's in business for profit, but I it turns from a hobby to something that makes me a little bit more than what it costs me. Right.
Right.
Yeah. That makes
That's
total
awesome.
sense.
Yes, it does. That's how, dude. And honestly, like that's how, I hate to say it in like these words. I don't really know a better way, but that's how like the kind of the wealthy, the affluent do it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, like there's all these dudes. Like I mean, heck, Rock Slide Engineering started by a bunch of dudes who like to build Jeeps.
Yeah.
You know, like there's all kinds of businesses. You know, I mean, there was one here. Al Wolford, he's out of business here. He's retired. I shouldn't say out of business. He's retired, but he built the Harley shop in a garage behind his house that was doing so well that the Harley Davidson in Cache Valley couldn't keep up. They couldn't compete. They were getting killed. And so they ended up going to him and bought him out.
That's
because
hilarious.
They could not compete with what he was. He had a dyno, and the thing of it is that's how these dudes do it. They get really into it, and they're like building all this stuff. And then they're like, man, I got to figure out how to make money doing this, right?
Right.
And so then they do, and so then he's out there building the most ridiculously fast bikes. He's out there winning races. Well, what happens when you blow a guy's doors off? He says, hey, how'd you do that? And you're like, oh, bring it up to our shop. We'll get you taken care of. And then what do? You say, okay,
Right.
Like we went up to a motorcycle event, and again, it's like his house, and then he built this huge like 6-car garage. It's that garage was as nice as a house, you know, and like they'd have these customer appreciation parties, and like, dude, you'd have 50, 60 bikes up there in his backyard, you know, and they'd just be pizza or whatever and beer and just hanging out. And in fact, once my boy, Carter, when he was probably 6 or 7, I let him ride his little 50cc dirt bike up to one of those biker parties, and like they were doing a poker run afterwards, and he went with us for like around Providence. So where we're at, you're allowed to ride whatever you want on the streets. Like your kids just have to wear helmets. And so, dude, he comes rolling, and it was dude. He was the coolest dude there. Like we roll into that thing with all the, and I kind of taught before we went and talked to him about how you back your bike in, right, and you rev it up a little bit, and before you shut it off. And like, dude, like everybody just came over to talk to him. Hey man, what kind of bike is that? And he's like, it's a 50. So that was a little ADHD story off of a business owner who turned his hobby into making money, but that was still fun. It was a great experience.
No. That's fantastic. Novak was exactly like that too. Because
he is. Yep.
I was talking about how the company got started. It's like, yeah, the dude who started the company and then sold it to Eric. Yep. He's just like, oh yeah, I made like one adapter kit in my garage for funsies because he had a Jeep he wanted to do.
Right, wanted to put a V8 in it.
And it's turned into, I mean, it's taken many years.
But it's turned into a huge company. They're Advanced Adapters. Yeah. Like that's a big name in the any automotive world.
Yeah.
Advanced Adapters.
Yeah.
So.
It's amazing to see that. And the funny thing is because people on the outside will look at that and be like, it's an overnight success. It started out and it's just come from nowhere. It's like, no, man, this business has been in business for like 40 years.
Yeah.
You just haven't heard of it because somebody was, slowly building something until it got to a point where they found the idea that really took it to the next level. And it's that kind of thing where like, you gotta start somewhere. It doesn't matter where you start. You can start small in your garage doing nothing for fun and then turn it into something that, launches. But you may never see it. You may be shepherded by somebody else who buys it from you.
Yep.
You never know.
That's right. You never know.
It's funny because that's about how a lot of our businesses have been. Like we got a little bit of expertise in something and we're like, oh, well, we'll just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Like our fencing business and our, construction, interior design. And this guy built almost wholly, remodeled that entire house. And it was,
it was like a $250,000 project.
It was horrible.
All kinds of tile and just whole redo of the interior.
This tile was insane. They had to get it from Italy.
China. We still have Italian spiders in our garage because of it.
Yeah. I never saw this, but apparently when they opened up the packaging, how you were there?
It was a bunch of these red spiders just started scattering out of the pallets. It just came from Italy,
dude.
I was out of that garage so quick. I said, nope, from me.
Yeah, that's funny.
And I bet they're all over there complaining like, the food, it doesn't taste like it does in my home.
Why are my fries are not that spicy?
That's funny. I wonder if they're still alive or if they'd freeze.
Oh no, I've seen a couple generations still alive, dude.
Some of them stuck around, surprisingly.
Yeah,
quite a few of them stuck around. I woke up with one in my room the other day.
That's hysterical. This shouldn't be here. Entomologist, what is this doing here?
You're not supposed to be here.
That's how that the Dyer's woad is here. That plant they keep telling us we have to kill.
Oh yeah, well, there's
Yeah,
a bunch of them, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's going to be hopeless, right? Like for whatever reason, people keep bringing exotic Russian life forms into Utah, and they're like, this won't go wrong ever. It's like, no, we have the exact same climate. Why would you bring this here?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, Russian olive, a big invasive species clogging up waterways.
Yep.
All kinds of the ring-necked dove is an invasive species. Have you noticed that?
Really?
Yeah.
That's
you
coming
can there's what's the term? It's not a depredation tag. It's they're a nuisance. They're a pest.
Yeah.
So
Kinda like
okay,
what
so
they do
you
with
can you're allowed
coyotes.
Um,
to kill them whenever you see them.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, the ring-necked dove.
Okay.
Got obviously a ring around its neck.
I got to get one of those Red Rider
Air rifles.
air rifles.
You'll shoot your eye out. No, just yeah. I always feel bad though because I think it is like doves mate for life, so you got to make sure you get both of them, or else you're abandoning one.
Yeah, and it's just a chain, right? You never know who it is, so you just got to. It's from one to mass genocide.
Pretty much.
You got to go the full direction. You
Pretty
can't.
much.
Well, honestly, if that's true, then you only need to do about 50% genocide. The other side won't do anything else.
Because they're not gonna make more babies.
Oh
What
man,
are they gonna do?
messed
Make
up.
babies?
It's
Yeah.
messed up.
I had a coworker who he had a bunch of ring like little doves that were hanging out on his fence, and he got so tired of them pooping on the fence, and it was like damaging the fence. He said, "Don't tell anybody," but I bought an air rifle. I've been practicing.
Yeah. It happens. They're probably ring neck, so he was okay. He just needed to know the information.
Yeah, no, he I think he killed like 4 or 5 of them. They all decided that fence was too dangerous to hang out. So
Happens.
Yeah.
Dude, we had last year, we had all the voles. I don't know if you remember me
Oh.
posting. So I was actually out here. I had a really good time hunting voles. So a vole's like a mouse, for those of you who don't know. It's just a little bit bigger, but it cuts the tunnels in your grass under the snow. I got really good, man. I was able to headshot those things at like 30 feet with my BB gun, steel sight BB gun.
nice.
I would like post pictures. I don't know if do you remember that? That was all in the private group. And I was like, hey guys, check this out. I got this one at 30 feet, like headshot. And I'm like, well, I realize it's not impressive game. It was an air rifle. That's an impressive shot.
Yeah,
Iron
no,
sights on a critter that big to headshot him.
Yeah.
I had put up a couple of pallets so that I could sneak up to the pallet and then peek through, and they wouldn't see me coming, because when they'd see it coming, they all scatter and hide. But if you could sneak up behind a pallet, they just sit out there in the grass, and you can just.
When we were living in Preston, what we used to do is we take a hose and stick it in one end of their hole, and then just sit on the other side, like.
Just go sit in lawn chairs and wait for them to come out and get them as they're going across the
That's
yard.
fun. There you go.
We
I
had
like it.
hundreds, thousands of
Yeah,
them.
I didn't have that many, because I bet you I shot 20 or 30 of them, and then I just quit seeing them. So.
Yeah, they're smart. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think
they're
so.
like, this is the field of death.
Yeah.
Half my family died in this field. I probably shouldn't be here.
Yeah, this is no good.
There was so many of those things that by the end of it, we had a full infestation of garter snakes. Like they
yeah,
had
that's
been
because
eating
right, one thing brings
generations.
another problem. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That was, I remember catching buckets of them.
Buckets of the
Gardener
gardener snakes, and
snakes.
just letting them loose.
One of our cousins had a problem with him too at one of his old houses, right? So we go by, pick up probably about 3 full 5-gallon buckets. I mean, like they're full to the top. They're all slithering around
Yeah.
inside. You walk up to his house and dump them on the ground. Sure shit, 1 week later, there was no voles in his yard left.
Yeah.
Oh man.
The snakes just left.
Yeah. The
Always gotta
joys.
find new ways to get things gone.
Right.
Well, I started having to. My house is a new build, so everything's dead.
Yeah.
And it was like on a rock quarry, so the ground was just awful. So the first year we moved in, it just got completely infested with tumbleweeds and all these noxious weeds that I'm allergic to. And so I would go out and I'd weed whack them, and the next day I was just
Just
completely clogged.
Oh.
I need a steroid shot just to like make it through the next day. and so the this year, like last end of last year, I'm like, this is it. I'm not doing this anymore. So I had them put in topsoil, put down seed. I didn't have any sprinklers in even, so I have to
Oh,
I have to
shoot.
water
So-
it
yeah.
by hose. But I'm done, because I have to crowd it out, and you have to plant the grass.
Right.
You
Yeah.
have to plant the grass, because there's nothing else that's going to stop it.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm my neighbors that the zero scapes thing. It's like, yeah,
Oh.
their yard's covered with weeds too, and
Yep.
Yeah.
There is.
Those zero scapes barely work out
Barely
here.
work. Well, the Utah wheat, they're tough. Are you kidding me? My slag walkways, the stuff that grows in those things. And I put poison down. I'm not even that shit. Like I spray and this shit still comes through.
You know what I started doing is I started burning them. I bought that little flamethrower from Harbor Freight.
Yep.
And yeah, like never forgive action. It burns the seeds, it burns all of the little drops and whatever. It burns the flower, and it'll like even if the weed is green and you focus it on the base, it'll char the base and it'll kill the weed, the root. And it's non-toxic. You don't have to spray poison anymore.
That's a good idea.
And it's kind of fun.
It's kinda fun.
I'm sure. Out
If
there
you're carrying around a
flamethrowing
40-gallon propane tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one of
Not
those.
a flamethrowers from Elon.
Right.
Right.
Your neighbor's just looking out the window. You're out in your yard, like flamethrowing the yard.
But little known fact is from firearms perspective, flamethrowers are ironically not firearms. They are not weapons. There's no regulation on flamethrower like apparatus except for exportation. So there's some exportation things that are out there. So like you could make your own flamethrower, and as long as you weren't trying to export it for production, the government would have a hard time coming after you for that. I won't say you're immune to it, because I'm sure some prosecutor somewhere is gonna realize you have a flamethrower and give it a good go.
Yeah.
But like if you keep it quiet, and you have a good lawyer, you probably won't have any trouble with a flamethrower. The thing you can't use it for is you can't like I don't think you're allowed to like arm a drone with it unless
that would turn into Geneva suggestion.
Right. but flamethrowers totally legal. Tanks totally legal. The tank itself, the gun less regulated than a machine gun. It's the wildest thing in the world.
That's why diesel. All these dudes are buying tanks now because they can get away with it. And they're
Boston, Massachusetts literally just made a dog, like a robot dog, that has a flamethrower attached to it, and you can buy it for $20,000.
Some of those things actually have real life uses. Like somebody somewhere is going to be like, "What is the need for this? Like, why would anybody need it?"
Burning ditches.
Yeah, you live out in a really remote area. You don't want to climb down that ravine. You send a robot or a drone or something. They use it for like weed patrol or tree patrol. When you're doing like long remote cuts of trees, they'll use like a chainsaw on a drone and they'll just whack a bush off. Like you need these kinds of things so you can get out into the middle of nowhere and do jobs.
So the whistling, really quickly, for whistling diesel, have you guys seen the video where he took the M1 Abrams and turned it into a remote controlled vehicle?
No.
Dude.
That's fun.
Dude.
That's insane.
Fully functional M1 Abrams that he bought from the U.S. military as an exposé, right? So it's no longer in use. They didn't concrete the barrel. He didn't have to. He could buy the munitions for it, right? So he's got a video where he sends one of the munitions through the side of a bus, right? That he pays for and everything. Anyway, about like a month ago, this dude took it, went over to one of the shops in town that he was at, right? And had them implement a
robotic system,
a full robotic system, even including the turret will spin on its own with the actual apparatus.
Yeah, there's actually a company out here in out in Petersboro that does that.
I'm pretty sure that's I'm pretty sure that's where he went.
Because that's probably exactly who it is then. Because they turn all kinds of construction equipment, and it's all back kind of behind the mountain, so you can't see what they're doing. Like,
is that over past
it's Petersboro, Mendon area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like there's some of the Cox Honey stuff is out there, some of those people. And I found it by doing inspection work out there. And then I ended up meeting an engineer, did a home inspection for a dude who was doing works there. He goes, we automate heavy construction equipment.
Huh.
That's kind of cool.
It is very cool. Yeah. I didn't realize they could do it. I mean, I'm sure they could do it to anything. I mean, at this point, they can do it to pretty much anything.
Well, all those little things, all they are is like these days is it's a CNC machine. It's all the same. It's all the same components inside it, and the
like a
PLC controller,
like a 5-axis machine that can do all that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
This arm goes this way. This arm goes this way. This does this.
So all you have to do is maybe sit there with an oscilloscope. I say this because I've done it. You sit there with an oscilloscope and run the machine and see what the this requires this signal. Okay, well, I plug it into a Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi now can reproduce it. You can build insane automation setups now with like home grade electronics.
Wow.
And it's not hard.
You can make your own Raspberry Pi. It's really easy, dude. It's expensive, but really easy.
It's cheaper to buy them, I think.
Yeah. At some point you get to that you can't beat some guy in Cambodia being paid 5 cents an hour to weld.
Exactly.
Valid.
Weld circuit chips onto your computer. But it's that kind of thing where it's like, yeah, it's amazing what you can kind of kit bash together now. Like the level of fun you can have if you know just a tiny bit of electronics and a tiny bit of computer programming. Sky's the limit. You just have to know some very arcane domain knowledge that you'll have to learn yourself.
Yeah.
So, but it's awesome. It's awesome to do that kind of stuff.
50 years ago, when the first James Bond movie came out, it was unheard of to have an amphibious vehicle. Nowadays, we can make them.
Yeah.
Just with electronics that are around and using different separate components.
I saw an RV that they've made so that it turns into a boat as soon as you drive it into the water.
That's terrifying. Not me. I would not be on said boat.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I can swim. It's fine.
That's fair.
It's crazy. Technology has advanced so rapidly, and like computers are going to take over. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if there are some limitations to it though. Like there's this really interesting problem where like as technology gets more advanced, it gets harder to see what it's actually doing. Yeah. And so you get the occasional person who has like enough drive and interest that they will actually tear down the computer and learn how it works. And those people like wind up either going to prison because they do something where they like hack the CIA, or they become really successful entrepreneurs and like venture capitalists and they get like crazy good ideas. And then the rest of everybody that doesn't have an interest in technology as a concept become consumers, and they're unable to actually see what's going on in the technology. So they just kind of like zone out. They don't care.
Sure.
That's valid. I never thought about it like that, but that's true.
Well, and so there's a limitation to how much technology that people can reasonably implement in their life. And so you need the technology to be completely seamless, where like interacting with it doesn't even require brain power. It happens for you, or you have a limit to how much you can bring it in because you just don't have bandwidth to keep maintaining it. Mm-hmm. And at some point, I wonder if we're going to turn into like a society that has Roman aqueducts that we don't know how to use, right? Like when the Roman Empire fell, nobody knew how to use these aqueducts anymore and maintain them and properly build them and whatever. And like all the people who knew how that had that domain knowledge there had died, and the technology just kind of like disappeared.
Yeah.
And so at some point, like if you have a situation where any crisis causes us to lose too many people, too much domain knowledge, causes people who would otherwise be applying themselves to technology and like science to go do something else, farm, fight, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. If we lose that, all this technology becomes so impossible to maintain that like you just have to abandon it. You can't keep it up.
That's true.
I just Idiocracy. And
did you really?
I did. I finally did it. And
it's scary.
Kind of the same premise, but not.
Yeah. Well. So they kind of breeze over that in Idiocracy because they just have the machines that have been set up for like 100 years or whatever, and all it is like an anal probe, and they put it in you, right? And it finds out everything that's wrong with you.
Yeah.
You know?
And then oh wait, was this the one that goes in your butt, or is this the one that goes in your mouth?
Right.
I hope I don't mix them up.
Right. So there's some level that you can do that at, but at some point somebody has to maintain that machine. Yeah. And we don't have self-maintainable machines. That's not a thing that we've invented yet. So like how much can we actually make technology interface with our lives before we like completely lose it? Mm-hmm. That's a serious question that I don't think anybody has an answer for, and very few people have sat down and like truly thought about how much technology they can actually have in their lives.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
as like a tech guy or learning tech, that's the better way to put it, I guess. Through learning tech, I've realized that nobody really wants to figure out why their computer's running slow. They'd rather just pay for it to be fixed.
Yeah, that's valid. Well, it's frustrating when you're sitting there not doing it and you're like, it says it's doing this. And you're like, but it's not.
Yeah. Well, I feel like 95% of people would, like, just pay to have updates done. And, like, they don't even know the basic level stuff.
Right. Well, and so what you're seeing a lot of is this move towards ecosystems where, like, Apple has all of these Apple products and you have to only buy Apple products for them all to work together.
Yeah.
And they allegedly work together well. I have reservations about that, but they're supposed to work really well together, and now you're locked into this ecosystem and you're paying this master to, like, do all of this technology maintenance for you.
Yeah.
But Apple isn't a deity. It will die one day.
Yeah.
What happens when Apple goes bankrupt?
Ooh.
Right? What happens when Apple just simply can't maintain its infrastructure? We live in a world where nobody's nuked San Francisco yet. But what if somebody did? What if it doesn't even have to be a nuke, right? Like, what if there was just a huge chemical attack? What if there was a big tsunami, earthquake, anything that damaged or destroyed a large amount of Apple's infrastructure? Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do?
That's true. That's a crazy thought, because it would be super, like, instant. It would be instant, like, because a lot of their hubs for everything that they run are in the same place. Like, they have huge facilities that run everything.
Now, Apple's thought about some of these things. So they do have, like, distributed infrastructure and some, like, fallbacks. But if you lose the brain people at the top,
yeah,
right, now all of a sudden, if something happened to San Francisco, to San Jose, half of the high end knowledge base for all soft on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. No, it absolutely.
What you can't maintain all 3 or 4 big technology companies, right? You can't maintain Microsoft, Google, and Apple all at the same time. So which one do you pick? And whose technology goes in the garbage bin, and whose technology stays forward for another 20 years or whatever?
I say we ditch Microsoft.
Right?
But Windows.
Too many of those.
Windows.
Yeah, but those dang updates every day.
Yeah.
Too many updates, and then nothing else works right, and I have to go install drivers.
Right.
That's what I want to start going live on, is to show everybody how much I have to update everything when we start a podcast.
Right.
So start doing it beforehand when I'm out here at 8:30 in the morning.
Just gotta make an update podcast.
Right.
Just compile all the episodes at the very beginning. Gotta update everything.
You just watch a little scroll bar, grow till 100%.
You just have the live feed, like, getting ready for the podcast.
I bet somebody would watch it. My nephew watches a YouTube channel, just a clock for some reason. I don't understand it.
My brother follows a Facebook page, which every single day they post the same picture of a pile of rocks. Yeah. Here's your picture today of a pile of rocks, and it's the same picture every day.
Like, they didn't even change the angle. They're literally just
it's one picture of a pile of rocks.
I've seen one with the same thing, but it's hot dogs.
Yeah.
Just with different toppings on it every day.
Well, okay, like different toppings. Like, give me some ideas.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I'll have a Coney dog today.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but no, the same pile of rock thing was weird. And then he invited me to follow it, and so I did, and I don't understand why.
But I did it.
But I did it.
Are hilarious to me. I'm in Birds Aren't Real. Are you
Okay.
guys
Birds
in that?
aren't real.
Birds aren't real. There's
real.
no way.
No.
I've never. There's no way. You can't have hollow bones. No, that's just metal framing. I swear. Birds aren't real. There's another one. And it's like a group where we all pretend to be roommates, and they just post random things of, like, ghost in the basement. It's like, hey, who left their girl back here? But it's funny because we create these individualized communities, but it's the same thing that we do here in, like, the real space. That's what's absolutely insane to me about social media, because we're just creating something that we have here in the physical world, but virtually, where we don't have to be in front of each other. And that blows my mind, because we're still building upon our same base preset, and then we're just bringing it to another level. So where's that going to go?
Post the rock pile instead of meet at the rock pile.
Right. Yeah.
Well, so there is an issue with that, though, and I was listening to a podcast today. The guy was talking about it, that, like, social media is like the candy of like psychology.
Okay.
And it's you can have a little bit of it and it doesn't harm you in any way, but what it's doing is it's giving you exactly the way candy does. It gives you kind of like food, but it's not actually food, right? It gives you calories, it gives you energy, it gives you kind of the buzz that like maybe a good meal might, but
It's not. Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's not giving you the nutrients. It's just giving you the super condensed, tasty version of it. And what they're finding is that people are like getting super depressed because they spend all of their time in these virtual worlds and they lose. They lose. There's an opportunity cost to it. You lose out on the friends, the sitting down and the talking and the getting
Actual
outdoors. And,
experience, yeah.
and so you wind up just like with a candy. You eat a candy. It makes you feel good. Fills your stomach even sometimes, and then immediately 10 minutes later you're hungry again.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem, right? Like it's fun to have like a fun group where you're pretending to be roommates, right? but if that combined with 5 other groups is what you're doing all day every day,
Yeah.
you're not receiving the nutrition of
Right.
family, friends, connection. You're getting the candy
Yeah.
that pretends to be that.
Right. It's kind of like masturbation versus sex.
Yeah.
It'll scratch an itch, but it's
It's very true. And it's all encompassing because like you can't live today without some form of like I say you can't. It's physically possible, but everything has gone so digital in every aspect that you have to go to. One of the hardest things that I've seen is I'll open up my Facebook in order to do a post or to do something, and then all of a sudden 2 hours later I'm scrolling. I'm like, whoa, how did I get here? What the heck just happened?
Yeah, my problem is YouTube, so I'll catch myself listening to YouTube too much, and like stuff's going on around me, like playing with my kid, and I'm like, why am I listening to a podcast right now? You know,
Right,
like,
yeah. Well, and we've kind of we just try to like put your phone down when somebody comes up and talks to you.
yeah,
You know, and like, or even like, I just did this thing where, you know, I got to go on a field trip with my daughter's, elementary school, and we went ice skating and had a blast. And then there's like, you know, half the moms are over there on their damn phone. And I'm like, yeah, I get that you showed up, but like your kid's like, Mommy, look at me. And you're, you know, it's sad to see that. And it makes me be aware of when I'm doing it and trying to not be doing it so much.
That's all it takes too.
Yeah.
It's still difficult because I feel like it builds habits easy
Oh,
and
yeah.
quickly.
no, there's a reason why all of these tech CEOs don't let their kids use their technology platforms.
Really?
Oh yeah, they know. It's all, dude. It's all of it. They're using the dopamine, the psychology of color theory, all of these things to just rope you in.
I quit Facebook in 2014, and I haven't been back. And admittedly, I still use other social media. I realize it's at this point it's kind of boycotting. Boycotting Meta is kind of like boycotting air.
Yeah.
But you know, so like I quit it because they're like, oh well, this story came out and they're like, well, we were running a psychology experiment on users and providing A/B testing and then determining whether or not their moods were improved or reduced by their social media feed. And I quit Facebook that week. And that was why, because what I realized they were doing is they're putting you through a psychological experiment, an actual psychological experiment with like
Without
consequences, right? And what Facebook did was potentially kill people. You're not supposed to do stuff like that in psychology without consent to some level. And part of it, the reason is that they're going to start messing with your moods. Well, what if one of the people that they portrayed that to had depression?
Yeah.
Or I guess this is going on YouTube. So what if that person unalived themselves?
Right.
Yeah. No, that's true though. Like there's no way for them to keep track of that. And then their test base is whoever gets it in front of them. Like
Correct.
Right. And so they're like, oh, we're having this cool experiment. We can make people happy or sad based off of their social media feeds. And I sat there and thought,
Huh?
Did you follow up with those people?
Yeah.
Do you know what happened to them? Did you longitudinally study them?
Did
Are
you
they
just
okay?
See if they stop showing up.
Yeah. Like, did they stop logging in forever on April 24th? You know,
Yeah.
like,
How do you keep
Yeah.
track?
Was there a news article about them?
right.
well, and then it gets into all the stuff that they track, like a lot of the at TikTok was one that it was in their agreements, but they track facial recognition, so they'll look for facial reactions that you have
Mhm.
while you're watching stuff, where your eyes are looking on the screen, what you're looking at, like what your reactions are in your face, all of that, and then it builds a portfolio of you in their program. So they know exactly what you like, exactly what interests you, not even based off of like what you're liking, but based off of your facial expressions when you see things that you enjoy or don't. You know?
Google's always allowed to listen to you. That's why you talk about something and all of a sudden you have an ad for it.
Yeah. Yep. And I've done a lot of stuff to kind of like reduce my profile online, but it doesn't really matter because there are still ways that they can associate you, even if you were to totally disassociate from these applications. Every phone has an advertiser ID.
Yeah.
If you have even one of these applications, like Google search on your phone, they know who you are and where you're going. And I've seen this with a couple of the guys that I know. Like YouTube keeps track of where you've been physically. So if I walk into a room with other people who have YouTube and they know that our advertiser IDs have been within so many feet of each other,
They share content.
Mm-hmm. And so I've watched just being physically present in a room with my nephew has fed him content that I watch, and I watch it like, and it's the reverse is same true. So like, I never heard of Fat Electrician. I don't know if you've ever seen.
I love the Fat Electrician.
I love Fat Electrician too. So it's great. You know, it knows, right? It knows that I would be interested in this content, but my nephew started watching it. And then all of a sudden I started getting it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it knows where you are physically in the real world. And it's like, well, you should have something to talk to your friends about.
Right. Well, and then it's almost like the social medias are controlling your social environments around you, not just what you're watching, but what you're talking about with people, what like everything is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty intense, the amount of like knowledge that they have about you, and then like what they can push you to enjoy.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason why we haven't seen this turn into like something really awful and evil is because it's too much information for any like even like a small group of people to handle. So like you really have to manage it by algorithm. You can't just like have some guy in the White House just be like, no, we're going to make everybody watch kitten videos on YouTube forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They can't, because that's a double-edged sword, because it means that you're getting generated content that you would be interested in, but also it's feeding it to you at a rate that is oversaturating, right?
Yeah.
How many times have you how many times have you learned something from TikTok? How many times have you learned something from Facebook? Right, a little little tip or a trick that you use now daily, but also it came at the cost of 40 hours for 30 seconds.
Right. Well, and
It's valid.
I sit down and like I try to mess with my algorithm a little bit more now and like get content that's more interesting to me because they're struggling. They're really struggling right now.
Like, what does
like,
he like?
Yeah.
I love it when YouTube feeds me like the next big thing of like homemade DIY missile systems. And I'm like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But that might just flag you somewhere. Just
Oh no! I'm already on a watch list. I know that for a fact.
Yeah. He's on the watch list. Right?
Oh my god! So my wife's family is applying for visas to come to visit the United States, and so you have to go to the consulate, and the consul mentions to my mother-in-law like, you're gonna go visit your new granddaughter Rebecca.
Huh?
And it's like they didn't mention it. We had applied like 2 weeks before to like get her passport.
Okay.
And so obviously they have the information, right?
Yeah.
But
dang.
they can now associate it with my wife because she has to register with the government because she's a resident, and then I have to register with the government because I have a federal firearms license. So like I mean, even if I'm not on a bad list, I know I'm on a list, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm on a list
Yeah.
somewhere. Somebody knows something about me.
Yep.
They're paying attention. So it's interesting. You know, they definitely know.
they know, but it's on a list of 100,000 other people.
Yeah, so that's the thing is like all these systems, right? Like an algorithm or like to get banned from Twitter or something, you still have to basically make somebody mad who has some level of power and influence.
Yeah.
Sure.
You can't they're not going to just auto ban you for having a particular opinion.
You just got to
I
say
don't know, man.
something
My wife
people
got
don't
kicked
like.
out of Facebook for having an opinion.
Maybe
Yeah.
Facebook's more aggressive about it.
Yeah.
But
Did she post it as a text thing herself, or did she share it from something
I don't
else?
remember, but it was one post that she did, and she's been kicked out, has never been able to get back in ever. That's been years now.
Dang.
So
That's how that's how Facebook jail is, though. It's like they
Now they
just
shadow ban you.
shadow ban you across everything.
yeah, they can tell people when people get into pens. It's really easy to do like penning. Be like, yeah, this group of people, they all have similar ideas, or they've all shared this one meme, and be like, yeah, we're gonna make those people disappear. That's easy.
That meme.
Finding a particular individual and then like profiling them and following them, that takes manpower. Even with like generative AIs where they can kind of like feed a bunch of information in and get a summary, somebody still is back there like actually pushing the button.
sure, okay, so it's still
And that like that same thing with I think they found out that what was it, Whole Foods had basically outsourced all of their loss prevention to India because they had an AI algorithm that was hunting for people who were stealing stuff, and they probably had one, but all it did was like flag something. And then some guy in a tech center in India somewhere would get a picture, and then he'd have to say like, that's theft, that's not theft, that's theft.
Oh, oh no.
wow. That
I
sounds like
know-
it was a really dumb idea.
Did you guys
Sure,
know
save
about
them
how
some
scary
money.
Target is?
Huh?
You know how scary Target is?
What are they doing now? There's no Target here anymore. So.
Well, Target is one of the most scary with theft prevention, because here's the thing. They have cameras throughout their entire store, right?
Right.
And if you go steal something from Target, they don't stop you, right? But they create a profile for you that is shared across all Target stores, right? And they keep track of all of the things, like even if you forget to scan a piece of gum, they track all the way down to that. And then once they get to $1,500 in losses from you, they file a lawsuit with all of the video evidence and then put you in jail.
Wow.
Walmart's starting to do a similar thing right now. I had read a story not too long ago about a lady that had gone in and applied over at Walmart, right? She went over to the manager's office. They asked for an interview for her. When she went into the interview, they showed her every time that she had stolen from any Walmart in the area from her.
God.
Every single one of the times, and brought a cop into the room with her and charged her with it.
Wow.
Yeah, they're sneaky, dude.
Well, I guess in a way it's kind of good because you watch all these videos of people just robbing places like blind. And I guess it's good to know that some of them are getting caught.
Oh yeah, no, I have no sympathy for thieves in
No,
that
I don't
sense.
either. Yeah, you're making the choice, like you deserve whatever happens.
Well, you know, here's the thing about it is when theft is like fractional murder. Like you have so much time in life, right? And then when you work, you trade time for money, and then you trade money for stuff. So a thief who comes by and takes something from anybody, even a company, right, is fractionally stealing life. Now, it's a tiny little percentage of it, right? But you do that enough, it adds up. And you're seeing like in places where they don't prosecute theft anymore, the prices are just, they're stealing from you. They're just stealing from you in the future.
Yep.
Because they're making prices go up. And it's like, yeah, guess what? Theft is off. Now I have to go back. Like the story from, before, like your car gets broken into. Yeah, it was a jacket and some garbage,
which I have to go work for X number of hours to replace.
Right. And it's like, it adds up.
Pay the deductible because it's more than what they cost. So you're just out. Yeah.
Yep.
No, it makes sense. Right.
I have zero sympathy for him for that reason. It's literally like tiny murder.
Yeah.
And not just that, but the people that worked in order to get that product onto the shelf, they worked in order to get it there so that they could get money. They still got their money, but then the business that had it, they lost the money.
Yep.
Now they have to pay more in order to
Get it again. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. that
Computer
stuff is
dinged out.
crazy.
dang it.
So I'm intrigued with I'd like to learn more about your firearm business.
Sure.
Kind of jumped around there, but I'm intrigued. So you said you've had it for 3 years, right?
Yeah, this is the third year now.
So what do you guys sell and like what do you guys do?
So most of what I do is custom AR builds. I tend to prefer producing weapons, not toys. So a lot of people will be like, I want a really refined range gun, and it's gonna, hit out at 1,000 meters or something like that. That's not what I normally do. What I normally do is provide a completed weapon system. So somebody's like, I want a gun that's for home defense, short range. I want an AR, right? Okay. So I'll build out an AR setup. I'll get the optic and the lasers and all the stuff. I'll order all the accessories, assemble and deliver. I have to keep things. I don't have like a machine shop in my house, so I can't do a lot of like custom machining work, but I'm trying to provide value to my customers, shortcutting the process of research, testing, finding out you hate something, finding out it doesn't work. And so I have a couple of different where I like aim for value tier versus some, and I'll do the high end stuff too, but the value tier is where I try to sit for a lot of my customers, because people here don't have a ton of money kicking around. So, I've done a lot of research. I've done some testing on some of these products, and I found the stuff that works, the stuff that doesn't work. So, when I say, okay, we're going to get this optic, I know that that's going to work for you. Okay. It's going to complete the job, and it's reliable enough. It's not going to be, so when you're talking about value tier, you're not talking about military specification. You're talking about something that's, a little bit lower. But if I've tested this stuff, I know it works. Yeah. I know how it will operate, and I know it'll work for you.
So your value is in experience.
Yes. And then the other thing that I'll do is I'm starting to venture into silencers and other NFA items. So
what's NFA Items? What does that mean?
And National Firearms Act. So anything that falls under that is like any rifles with barrels shorter than 16 inches, shotguns with barrels shorter than 18 inches. There's some specialty weapons that fall under that, and machine guns. So all of those fall under what's called the National Firearms Act. And it basically, it was an early way to try to ban things without actually banning them. You have to pay a $200 tax to own any of those things.
Yeah.
So, and then in order to deal with them, you have to have a special licensing tax from the government to be able to deal with them.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have a question. So like if you were to apply for getting like a suppressor or something, because normal people can apply for it, right? Is that like hard to get, or is it
super easy?
Really?
Right now, the problem is that there are no silencers in the entire country. They're all sold out because the ATF finally got reasonable about the timelines that they're supposed to do for returning those to you. And so
it used to be 6 months, and now it's a few days.
Oh, it used to be a year.
Dang.
Yeah, it's gotten down to a point where it's so low that the silencer inventories across the entire country are going like boop, 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 boop. Huh. So something will come in stock and it's out immediately. Because you wouldn't buy a car and somebody would tell you, oh, you can take possession in a year. Yeah. Right? Or even a house, right? Like the longest people will wait for a house really is like 60 days. But, somebody tells you, oh, you can buy this. You have to wait, 365 days before you can take possession of it. Nobody will buy that. But once they dropped it to, 2 weeks, just everybody got in on it.
Everybody has, people are buying them like crazy.
I've got like 3 or 4 silencers on back order. I've got a couple sitting in my safe right now waiting for paperwork to go through. So, it's crazy. And I was talking to some friends who are in the industry, and they're like, yeah, you got to get into silencers because it's good margins and it's easy. Like you don't have to sit there and sit on the work. You mostly just process paperwork. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to do it. And so January I filed for my tax, and then they immediately changed their wait times. And all of a sudden everything goes out of inventory.
That's awesome.
So right. I've sold a big fat like 0 silencers this year because,
can't get them. You got to have them, which is crazy because they're pretty easy to manufacture.
Yes. However,
importation and stuff.
It's easy to manufacture cheap ones.
Okay.
It's hard to manufacture the good ones. So all of the major companies, because of the $200 tax and the year-long wait time, American silencers have turned into like Ferraris. They're amazing. And so you get these things, they're made out of titanium. They're unbreakable. They will last longer than you will. That you will hand them down from father to son for 3 generations.
Wow.
Right? Like that's how durable these things are. You go to Europe and they're not regulated at all the way that they're regulated here. And it's like, okay, we made this thing out of aluminum. It will last 200 rounds and it will explode, and then you will buy another one and they cost $20.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a difference, right? Like it's almost a consumable item for them. For us, it's like, this is a prized possession. I can't let it go. It cost me $200 in tax. It cost me a year of my life waiting for it. this is going to last forever.
Yeah.
And so they put a lot of effort into it. So it takes them forever. The resources to put into it, to get the titanium and the cobalt nickel alloys for this, the steel that they put in it, like all of these things cost so much money. And admittedly, like it's made our industry for silencers like top tier. We have the best silencers in the whole world, but you just can't buy them.
Right. You just can't get one.
They're awesome, but you
Dang.
can't get them.
So for your company, what's in your opinion the best platform that you produce for somebody? The best, the coolest, whatever it may be.
Or your favorite?
My favorite, ooh,
Hard question. They're all your favorite. Huh?
that is hard. Yeah, don't ask me how much I love my children. What I'll say is what I recommend to people. This sounds weird to some people, but I think your primary defensive weapon, especially here in the West, it's an AR-15. It has to be. Most people, their experience with firearms is about an inch deep, and they maybe shoot once every 3 years. And when you do that, you're talking about somebody who I'm going to give you a defensive weapon. I'm not going to give you a toy. I'm giving you a defensive weapon. You will use that in the worst moment of your life. And what you need to give that person is something that doesn't fail, can sit on a shelf for a long time, and requires zero skill to operate. Because that person will probably, over the course of the lifetime of that firearm, maybe put 500 rounds through the gun.
Sure.
So you waste a lot of money buying like incredibly high-end components. Like if you were to go buy a Knight's Armament Company rifle, it meets the criteria of it's going to be 100% reliable on first shot. It fails the criteria of being affordable because that person will never use it to the capacity it was designed for.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really good like mid-range ARs that I would recommend for that purpose. Which particular brand you sit with, I think they're all pretty equivalent. I haven't seen like a crazy big difference between like, for example, a Springfield Saint and a SIG or 16. I haven't seen a ton of difference between them. But if I put that gun in the hands of somebody who's inexperienced, it takes maybe 10 minutes to show them how to use the gun. 2-hour range session, they'll be proficient with it. Mm-hmm. And then they can put it in a bag and keep it in their house and never touch it again. They will know how to use it. If you give them a red dot on that gun, they will hit every shot first time, more or less, on a man-sized target. And so, that's why I tell people, like, get this, because you're gonna put this in, unless I know that you're gonna use it for competition or something, right? You're gonna put this in your closet and you're never gonna touch it. And I want you to be able to pick it up at that moment and know how to use it. People say, well, get a handgun for self-defense. The problem with a handgun is they are inaccurate when you're not trained. They're accurate when you know how to use it, but if you hand it to the average Joe, especially an old lady, young woman, young kid, their groups will be minute of man. They'll be missing humans at 20 feet. But if I give them a red dot on a rifle, their groups will be this big. So what's more dangerous? Missing a shot on a bad guy or over penetration? This is the argument that other people will come back, right? Oh, the rifle's gonna shoot through every wall.
No.
Not if you hit the guy.
Yeah, not if you hit the guy.
Right? If you hit the guy, maybe it'll get to the next wall and but it'll be shrapnel, it'll kind of tumble and it won't be, as much energy.
Right. You
miss with a 9mm, that's going to go through your whole house.
Yeah.
It might stop in the masonry on the way out. But an AR-15 will do the same thing, right? So what's the difference? The difference is that I can guarantee that a random person that I pick off the street is going to get a group this big on a target. Whereas,
yeah, and you're not, because like I do some teaching on just some of the handgun stuff, and I took a group out and it was a bunch of guys who conceal carry for, church security or whatever, and like watching them all, empty 15 rounds and hit 3 shots. And I'm just like, oh, and they're all older than me. So like, obviously they're not just going to listen. And so I let everybody shoot and like just burn through ammo. And then I was like, okay. So then when they're all reloading, I was like, hey, you guys mind if I shoot? And they're like, no, go ahead. And so I break out my SIG, my Legion X, and I just ding, 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 ding. I'm hitting still targets and I just hit all 12 of them without missing a single one. I'm like, anybody want to learn how to shoot? And they're all like, yeah.
Yeah. And so the thing is to me, like a handgun's like a specialty weapon, right?
It is.
I know how much you've shot, and there are people who shoot more than you, and there's people who shoot way more than me. The skill for a handgun requires constant practice.
Oh yeah.
And it atrophies like that.
Yep.
And on top of it, right, you need to be shooting. You need to have shot at least like 1,000 rounds through a handgun to be proficient enough to not consistently miss a target.
Yeah.
And most people, they won't even buy 1,000 rounds over the course of their life.
Yeah.
Right? Like they'll buy the first 4 packs of hollow point ammo that they buy at the gun store when they pick up the gun, and they'll never buy another pack of ammo again.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's the average person.
That is the average person. Then there's those of us who I buy my ammo by 1,000 round box at a time, and I usually go through 3 or 4 a year. That's why I was like, so it's funny to prepare for. So David's actually going with me. We're going to go up to Parma and do the Mountain West 3-gun competition here next week, and I think I've probably put 500 rounds through that gun for training for this.
Oh yeah,
just through the pistol.
Yeah, easily.
And I got a bunch of 157 grain 9s instead of those little 115s. Well, yeah, but have you tried to knock the spinner? Do you know what the spinner is?
Yeah, I know what the spinner is.
So I'm like going to have one magazine loaded with those 157s just for the spinner. I have it in my pocket so I don't mix up. So those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, a spinner is it's basically a teeter-totter, but it's vertical, and it's a metal bar with 6-inch gong on each end, and it sits vertical, and so you shoot the top and it swings, and at the end of its swing you shoot the bottom and it swings again, and at the end of its swing you shoot the top. Now with a regular 115 grain 9mm, it takes about 6 rounds to spin that sucker, and if you miss one you lose your momentum, and it takes 2 or 3 to pick it back up, and if you time it wrong you stop it dead, and then you have to start all over. So that so far has been the bane of my existence, and so this time I'm like, I'm ready. I got some heavy bullets. I gotta get that sucker this time.
You have 500 Magnum bear gun. Just
well, yeah, but like some dudes are shooting out there. They do the competition with a 45 just because of the spinner, because it's only 3 shots with a 45 to spin it. So
because I mean, get a higher grain, you can kick it out.
Yeah,
dude.
we even had to do them once. We had to do the spinner at like 150 meters with your AR. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that could be really tough.
Yeah. Well, you're going to do it. We have to hit like 80-yard targets with a slug out of a damn 12 gauge. The first time I went out there, I was like, I don't have any slugs. And you're like, here, use these. I never shot a slug in my life, but I got the target.
Yeah, I'm getting out of my comfort zone on this, but yeah, I did zero that shotgun. And
oh, you did? Good.
Yeah. I guess so. I'm hopefully I can hit that thing on the first shot.
Have you been practicing reloading?
I have not. I'm so.
Do you even
unprepared.
have a carriage or anything?
I ordered. So I had my shotgun set up for like defensive stuff.
Okay.
So I've every intention I wanted to take like a defensive shotgun class, and so I don't have rigs for like competition rigs. I have those STAC shotgun cards.
Okay.
Because they're kind of like a magazine that you can throw on the shotgun, and you know, and then you can keep extra ones in your. So I had mine set up like that. So I'm gonna wind up doing that.
Okay.
I'm gonna practice how I fight, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
Way to be.
Yeah.
Practice makes perfect.
That's awesome.
but I am not a shotgun guy. Like that's the funny thing. Like I've almost never shot shotguns, and I'm terrible at skeet. I'm so bad at skeet.
That's really hard because a lot of these targets are poppers where you shoot a steel silhouette, and as it falls, it pops up a clay pigeon up in the air, and you got to double shot it. Oh, dude, this is gonna be so intense.
I'm gonna be sick next week. That's what's gonna happen.
No, you're gonna do fine. You're gonna have fun. Oh my gosh. Well, hey man, that is an hour-long podcast. That is about all the time that we have for today. So we all got to get back out to it and hit the thing. So, dude, David, thank you for joining us. That was awesome. Thanks for sharing us a little bit of your journey. You are an amazing conversationalist. We enjoy it very much. Absolutely. We lost Daniel, so we won't see him. But anyways, thanks for joining us, you guys. If you haven't already, click down here and subscribe on this channel and help us keep doing this.
Check out the website, and we'll also be putting your website in the description.
Yes. Yes.
You want
me to pitch
it?
Yeah, crowmountainarmory.com.
Okay, and we'll link it in there.